Welcome to the Welsh Yogi Podcast.
And here we go again, 2021 Welsh Yogi Podcast.
Woo!
Now we got a fantastic episode lined up today. Absolutely fantastic. This, apart from myself, we've got
Back to Ben!
Everyone's favourite, Back to Ben. We've got a special guest, Dayalu Gora Prabhu. Prabhu means Mr.
Mister.
Yeah.
Mr. Orange.
Okay. And
Okay. So we got Mr. Orange.
moving on.
Where do you guys from?
And we got Charlie, our technician.
Charlie, you had something to say?
What did you say earlier, Charlie?
It's been a while since we've done a podcast, so I thought we'd start on Mantra 4 because it's a nice place to start.
Wow,
Very
okay.
mature.
And there's four of us here as well, so we've got a mantra.
Yeah, there
And
you
there's
go.
four of
Mantra
us, so you're just
4,
connected.
us here.
There's four. Is there a fifth joining the group? No, there isn't. Okay, Mantra 4.
Yeah, anyway, I hope everyone's been well. 2020 is finally passed us by. Although, despite all the the horrible forest fires, and also at the start of the year, there was World War III nearly broke out as well. I think there was some drone assassination by the American government, and then we had a
Little pandemic.
worldwide pandemic, riots going on in the streets because of the racial inequality that was being expressed in a lot of places around the world, and a lot of sad deaths that were caused by the virus and other things. But apart from that, we had quite a good year in terms of what it did for.
Yeah.
They say necessity is the mother of invention, and what we found in our little community was that being forced to, in this lockdown, and being forced to act differently or being restricted from certain normal habits that we were used to, forced us to think outside the box and to grow in a lot of other areas, I think.
Yeah, it was wonderful. We managed to expand our Food for Life efforts. At the beginning of the year, we weren't really... How much? We were providing maybe a couple hundred meals a week, wasn't it? With Steve.
Yeah, and now it's feeding thousands of people.
90,000 meals, isn't it?
Yeah, we do 800 a week.
Is it?
Yeah, minimum.
Minimum.
That's minimum, yeah.
So please write in with your positive experiences from 2020. And 2021 is going to be a good year, I can feel it.
Yeah. You reckon?
Share
think
your
so.
realizations, and we'll mention them on the next podcast.
Thanks.
Where can they share them to?
Mr. Orange. No, that's cool. I like it. Share your realizations.
I do one-liners.
Where can they share them to?
Just write them in somewhere. I'm sure they...
Just send them. Just press send.
I didn't say send them to us. Just send them to someone. Just spread the positivity around.
Just write it on some paper and burn it.
Yeah. Just write it on a message to your closest friend and tell them all the positivities in your life. Okay, Mantra 4.
But we haven't properly introduced our special guest, Dayalu Gora.
Yeah,
Prabhu,
and Alice.
and Ellis.
Should we start again?
No,
We don't have to start again. What do you think, viewers?
it's great.
Okay.
It's great. But Dayalu's been a monk for 10 years,
10 years, something like that, yeah, 10 years.
which is a long
Yeah.
period of time.
He's very caring person, as we said before. We were just discussing earlier on how he actually he came in a spiritual family and was brought up with these spiritual practices, which we're going to read about in Church Upanishad today. He actually went into he was a gangster for a while, wasn't it? A gangster, and
Player.
he was a real player and gangster on the streets of Newcastle, Emlyn. What was it? You had one of your trouser legs up, wasn't it? Tucked up and a bandana
I
around
think
your
gangster's a relative term. According to my own estimation, that's pretty hardcore.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
but now he's turned his life right around, has become a Hare Krishna monk, and is just dedicated to giving others spiritual knowledge.
Jai.
He's actually my best friend as well.
Yeah, I've known Gopal Rao. We were in the ashram together, and now we're not in the ashram together. Life goes on. Okay.
Okay, Mantra 4. Hit us with the Sanskrit there.
Dad, you start reading.
Okay. Ani jadi kang manaso javiyo. Nainad diva apnavan. Why are we doing the Sanskrit for? They don't know Sanskrit.
We always do the
We're
Sanskrit.
educated.
You don't know Sanskrit either, but you still read it.
No, it's purifying just to hear the sound vibration.
Yeah, in
Ani
fact,
jadi
one thing we
kang
forgot to
manaso
do, we didn't do our invocation.
Nainad
Oh,
so-
that's
diva
why. That's
apnavan
why.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, I want everyone to tune in now because we did a nice welcome, but now we got to really focus and tune in to what we're about to hear. So all together,
Fold our hands as well.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate
Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om
Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Okay, Jello, hit us.
Ane jadi kang manaso javiyo naina deva apnavan purvamarshat tadavato nyan atyati tishtat tasmin apomatarishwa dadati. Although fixed in his abode, the personality of Godhead is swifter than the mind and can overcome all others running. The powerful demigods cannot approach him, although in one place he controls those who supply the rain and air. He surpasses all in excellence.
So that was the verse, that was the Sanskrit mantra, and now there's a purport by Srila Prabhupada explaining this.
Who's Srila Prabhupada, Gopal? In case, because we haven't made a podcast in over a month, right? So someone might just hop on.
Yeah, if someone's just jumping on now, we welcome you, welcome viewers, new and old. So what we're doing in this podcast, if this is your first time you've lasted this long,
Congrats.
congratulations, and you are sincere. Now we're going to get a bit more serious and tune into these spiritual vibrations now. This is Sri Ishopanishad, which is one of the Upanishads, or oldest Vedic spiritual literatures coming from the East. And this particular version we're reading has been translated and explained by Srila Prabhupada. Now, Srila Prabhupada is the most prominent and authorized translator and teacher and distributor of spiritual wisdom, culture, science, and art that there has ever been. He's accepted both by the seasoned yoga practitioners as well as the academics. So he's translating each one of these ancient mantras, and now we're going to hear his purport to this mantra. I do suggest people, if this is their first one, listen to the previous podcasts also, because there's a lot of terms in here that we've tried to explain previously. For example, like the word Godhead, or even just the very conception of the Supreme having consciousness and personality also, which can be something very hard to get our heads wrapped around, especially a lot of us might have probably been sort of scarred by different conceptions of religion, etc., etc. So it is good to start with almost like a verbal blank slate to introduce this word Godhead.
It's true. And if you guys need a copy of Sri Ishopanishad, you can message us. We're on Facebook and Instagram, Welsh Yogi Podcast, and we'll send you one.
Yeah,
It will be very low cost, maybe even less than low cost.
Yeah, we'll try. Just message us and we'll get one to you somehow or other.
Yeah. Because we've literally got thousands, right? We just had a nice shipment.
We wanted, and they're there to be distributed. And literally, all we'll ask for is just if we ask for anything, it'll just be enough just to cover the printing cost. We really believe the knowledge in these books, they are free. We just have to charge something for the paper and the ink.
Exactly. So who's going for the purport?
I think, well, Dale's our guest, so if you want to start reading the purport, already I've got a couple of questions to bring up from this verse.
Yeah.
But I think maybe we should start reading the purport and then things will come up. Because I was just looking, like, although in one place he controls those who supply the... No, this is the one. Is swifter than the mind and can overcome all others running.
Overcall.
So he's swifter than the mind. So previously it was described a speed of the mind. You know, so if you think of Hawaii, you're there.
Yeah.
You know, so think how quick the mind is. So we're talking about a category of a category of being, or a category of energy, including consciousness, that has these incomprehensible potencies, and one of these potencies is that swifter than the mind, and can overcome all others running. So
does that mean you can't get away from him? Physically?
Overcome all others running. You know, faster than Usain Bolt. And,
yeah.
But that's already set. That's already contained within swifter than the mind.
Yeah, interesting.
So I'm just looking for the word for word Sanskrit now. Devaha. Apnuvan means can approach. Purvam in front. Arsat is the Sanskrit word for moving quickly. And Davataha, those who are running.
Wonder what they're running from.
Yeah. Anyway, so maybe things will become clearer in the purport, but these are just some initial questions.
And the powerful demigods. We talked about demigods a little bit in the last episode.
Uh-huh.
Demigods are like these supreme beings that exist in like parallel dimensions that sort of control aspects of reality. That's one way you could put it if you wanted to sound like far out. But they're basically like sort of people that do jobs in the universe, right? Isn't it?
Yeah,
Personalities.
I think they this idea of, because you hear people say, Hinduism they have millions of gods, you know, but that's not quite accurate. Hinduism, at least according to the Bhagavad Gita, is actually what do you call it, monotheistic. So it believes in one source of everything, but all these other sort of quote unquote gods, a lot of them are actually what Prabhupada calls here demigods, or in Sanskrit devatas, which are like conscious forces that conduct the different managements of the universe and things like that, which is it's difficult for us to understand. The example is given, like you have Christopher Columbus' aunt, who is on his adventure and he starts crawling on your arm, goes past all your hairs, and he starts going on your shoulder, and then goes on your head, and then he walks back to all his other little ants, and he says, I've seen the big world out there. It's vast. There's trees and mountains, all uninhabited. Yeah. But he doesn't realize that he's climbing on a person. So there's so much in the universal sort of management and makeup that is far beyond the conception of our sort of human minds. But even within our experience, we can understand that wherever there's, wherever you see any kind of management, there's usually a person or a conscious being behind it, or wherever you see an energy, there's an energetic. Yeah,
you hear a lot about people that take psychedelics like DMT, and they enter these different parallel realms where they see living beings and stuff like that, which is something that's kind of interesting.
Yeah. Like we're going off. Was it the Council of the?
No, Intergalactic Council of Elders. This is something else, but it's for another podcast. But no, I've been reading a lot. Fifth Canto, where it talks about the construction of the universe that we live in, and also Mahabharata. So Mahabharata is like this great epic from India, and the Bhagavad Gita is situated in this Mahabharata, and it's all about different stories of like intrigue and different kings that are conquering each other, and there's like a battle between good and evil, like your perfect story. But it talks about how Arjuna, who's the hero from the Bhagavad Gita, how he enters into these heavenly realms through the Himalayan mountains. So I've been doing watching a lot of videos about the Vedic understanding of the universe, and it says that
they're really complicated, isn't they?
But what it says is the Himalayan mountains, like the Himalayas, this region is like sort of an area where you can get access to the celestial realms. So like if you have a certain developed consciousness, so they talk about these seers, these like rishis that live in the Himalayas. They've got an elevated consciousness to a level where they can see certain mountains, and they can ascend these mountains and go to these heavenly realms. And likewise, like the river Ganges, you heard about like Kumbh Mela. You have like these rishis that can teleport through the Ganges, and like they appear at Kumbh Mela, which is like this big festival. But like like there's these different like heavenly aspects to transport each other through universe. Like I just thought, like it's because we've got such a limited consciousness, and we're on this kind of plane which they call Bhumandala. So like we're in this plane, but there's a way to sort of springboard yourself onto a different plane if you've got the right kind of consciousness and you know the sort of mystic methods of doing it. But it's just something interesting. So these demigods, we can't understand. We're like that ant, and the demigods are existing in this kind of other space which is beyond our conception, because our conception is limited by our 5 senses. So we see according to those senses. But these beings have like elevated apparatus to interact with the world, and they live in these sort of other realms within reality.
Yeah, other dimension, and that's the.
Hey, give me a hit of that.
It is, and it's all described in this Vedic literature. It is, and the people who are saying these things, writing these things, or studying these things, their character is, their character and their intelligence is, there's people who I've spoken to and heard who I haven't met anyone who's as intelligent and coherent as them. Like you have Bhaktivedanta Maharaj and
Kandadi Prabhu.
Yeah, I say often, that there's stuff that the Vedic literature speaks about which is so incomprehensible. And I can honestly say I completely believe it all as complete truth now. From practicing what I have, from practicing the methodology of spiritual technology that's presented in these books, like the Bhagavad Gita and Upanishad, the small experiences and realization I've had from practicing these things to the best of my ability, like the meditation of chanting Hare Krishna, just the different lifestyles of the spiritual life in practice, has given me such experience and realization that all the other things that is described, I accept as truth. And even empirically, all evidence only supports what is presented. It doesn't contradict. Now, just because it speaks about things which are beyond, like you said, beyond the purview of our senses, doesn't mean it's not true. It means just that it's beyond the purview of our senses. Now, if what it discusses that is within the purview of our senses is correct, then why not believe? I can understand, having some doubt or inquisitive about it, but why? There's no reason to disbelieve it. In fact, it's the fact that it's written and described is evidence. It's self-evident, and it's not on the onus to
confirm.
Yeah. So that's the point. Anyway, it's on you can't, unless you can disprove it. Then, if everything else that it presents that's within your experience is true, then it only builds up a case that the rest of it is true, no matter how inconceivable it sounds. Like being able to access heavenly planets through mountains and the Himalayas.
And transport yourself through the rivers.
Wasn't there you guys mentioned the Joe Rogan thing with Bob Lazar and stuff?
Bob Lazar. We touched on Bob
It was a bit about Bob Lazar, yeah.
It's just because...
you watched it?
Yeah, seen some.
Yeah.
I haven't watched it yet.
But,
Bob Lazar.
But that was...
Bob Lazar.
But that was just interesting because it just describes it, this conversation is like a physicist who his paradigm of the universe was that... That's come closer.
Can do.
His paradigm of the universe was that there was no life on other planets except for this one. But he himself said that when he was in Area 51, was dealing with one of these flying saucers, or
one of the propulsion systems.
On a propulsion system, yeah. Then he was saying that actually turned his paradigm upside down. So it's like that. That's coming from someone who doesn't accept paradigms that accept that there are life on other planets, but now they're coming to have to accept that there are life on other planets, and if there's life on other planets in solar systems light years away from this one, then that just gives evidence that there is life on other planets. And these life on other planets, they had the the element that they had that was in the propulsion system was an element that creates gravity, and there's nothing like that on this planet.
He stole some, didn't he?
Yeah, so it's like element
Well,
115.
he stole some, but then as they were doing the documentary, he didn't outright say he stole some, I think, but he took. This was a far out thing. The person doing the documentary, he took him to one side and said, "Look, I really need to tell you about this. This element 151 or something like that."
115.
115. He said, "I need to tell you about this." And the person doing the documentary said they turned their phones off. They turned everything electronic off, and they met in an undisclosed location somewhere in a forest. And he just had his little video camera to record the thing. And then that's the only way they recorded it. And then I think the next day, then don't know how they knew. But the FBI and all these others, they just swarmed Bob Lazar's where he was working and had cars and vans full of personnel, just raided where he worked and searched everywhere. And they said it was because it was for some unfilled receipt or tax form or something.
You only need someone that deals with tax forms.
But it was
one person, not the whole.
Yeah, you tell me.
All these. It's just mad. Anyway, it just shows that there's life on other planets.
Yeah,
that's one form of evidence. There's a good book by a person called Richard L. Thompson, and that deals with UFOs.
What's it called?
I can't remember.
Great.
It's so good. You just.
No, Richard L. Thompson. He's got some.
What's it called?
But I was talking about in this book, Mystery of the Sacred Universe. That's another one of his books, right?
Yeah.
I've heard about how, these other planets, that we have access to these planets with our limited senses, but we can't necessarily perceive what's on these planets.
Yeah.
So they explain we might have gone to the moon and we've discovered this completely dusty place. But the Vedic description of the moon is there's kusha grass, which is cooling flames. And there's loads of rishis that are meditating and all that, right? So you read the Vedic paradigm, then you hear our modern scientific understanding. But what I heard explained was that this is if you're trying to understand New York City, and you look at a map of New York City, it's not the same as seeing the 3D place. So it's our senses only allow us to have access to the map of New York City. But if we had a higher consciousness or a different type of consciousness, we'd be able to see the 3D buildings, So it's this grass and all of this, these beings that exist on these other planets. Maybe we can't see them because our apparatus isn't able to see it in 3 dimensions or 4 dimensions or whatever. There's I heard there's something 6 or 7 different dimensions, and it's pretty cool. Should we start the purport or?
Yeah.
So
have you started the purport yet?
Not yet. We got sidetracked on demigods.
Yeah, we got way out of it. We got
far out.
We went too far out there. Really.
But we went all the way out to Bob Lazar from that.
Yeah. So purport.
Through
mental speculation, even the greatest philosophers cannot know the supreme Lord. So you can't understand these things just by sitting around and talking about them. Who is the absolute personality of Godhead?
Isn't it?
That's why I'd like to talk about Krishna a bit more, actually.
Yeah,
there's some things that he can be known only by his devotees through his mercy. Okay, that's in Brahma Samhita. It is stated that even if a non-devotee philosopher travels through space at the speed of the wind or the mind for hundreds of millions of years, he will still find that the absolute truth is far, far away from him. The Brahma Samhita further describes that the absolute personality of Godhead has his transcendental abode known as Goloka, where he remains and engages in his pastimes. Yet, by his inconceivable potencies, he can simultaneously reach every part of his creative energy. I mean, this is I don't know, I'm just thinking of how to... Someone was saying the other day, to think that the absolute foundation of reality is a person. You think, well, okay, how can that be? Being a person is limited in a lot of ways. Have likes and dislikes and a form. So therefore, you're limiting, the unlimited source of everything by giving this person attributes. But actually, it's the other way around. It's facilitating the completeness of the absolute complete for this being to have personality and likes and dislikes, and because that means because you have to allow for different potencies.
So you say it facilitates the completeness of the absolute truth.
Facilitates completeness of the absolute truth by having personality, form. Here it talks about devotees, which means loving exchanges.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like where does our desire for love and to be loved come from? Everyone's hankering for is really loving relationships. Those who say they don't want loving relationships is usually because we've had experiences of relationships that are bad. So therefore we think spiritual life must be devoid of relationships. But true, wholesome, loving relationships is actually what the soul really hankers for, which is why socially, in a social structure, a society built on spiritual values has very good material relationships, like family relationships and friendships, because these one should learn how to love, basically love people, love your family, and then I'll expand that then to Krishna and to all living beings.
So is it possible to love Krishna through your family and through those around us? Like, is that a way to express this kind of? Is it?
You love Krishna, like we said before, isn't it? You water the root of the tree, and therefore the tree gets nourished, and the branches and the leaves and all these things. If you just water the leaves, then the tree doesn't get its full nourishment. So that's the idea, is that when one finds the source of existence, which Shri Upanishad and Vedic literature is presenting Krishna, then if you can direct your loving propensity to Krishna, then you will see that everything and everyone else, you love them also, because you see them as part and parcel of Krishna.
What's the verse in the Bhagavad Gita about one sees with equal vision? Do you know that, Dan?
Yeah. Brahmana, Hati. Yeah, what's that verse?
Yeah,
I was putting
it's
this
like the famous verse. Sorry to put you on the spot.
Jehu's and Parshad. No. Vidya Vanaya Sampane Brahmana Gandhi Hastami Sunachivas Vapakicha Pandit Samidarshina.
Wow.
That one.
Sama means equal, isn't it?
Yeah. And there's other verses like Yopasanti Sarvatra, Sarvayam Cha Pratishyati, Tushyaham Na Pranisyami, Sachame Na Pranishyati. Krishna also says, one who sees me in everything and everything in me, he is never lost, nor I'm never lost to him, nor is he ever lost to me. And there's also Yagatfana Panamo Hamavamyasha Pandava, one will never fall into illusion if one sees that everything is part of me, or in other words, that they are mine. There's a few verses in the Bhagavad Gita where Krishna tries to give us this sort of equal vision on the spiritual platform.
Because that's what all of these like sort of political, like communism, communism is hankering for this. Okay, we're all equal on some level. It's like it's natural.
It tries to get equality, but if you try and get equality materially, it never happens, because unfortunately we're not equal materially. And that's okay. In fact, it's a good thing that we're all different. Someone can run faster than you, but you might be better at crossword puzzles than someone else. Everyone's got different abilities and different strengths and weaknesses, and that's a good thing. And you'll never just get equality on a material platform, because there's so much inequality naturally. If you really want true equality, then you have to go deeper than just the skin and bones that you see immediately in front of your eyes. You have to go like heart deep. And that's what spiritual life is meant to connect everything spiritually. Like, I'm just thinking now about this, the absolute truth having potencies. Because I was reading the other day as well about, there's these three main, this might be a bit much, but there's three main potencies that the Supreme has. You have a Hladini potency, which is the potency of pleasure. And when that's sort of comes to the material world, that potency of the Supreme we experience, but it's in our experience of material happiness and pleasure. Now, that potency is coming from the Supreme. That's coming from Krishna, but it's material. If we can see that potency in connection with Krishna, it becomes exceptionally blissful. Similarly, you have the potency of existence, which is the Sandini, and then you have the Samvit potency, which is the potency of knowledge, which ultimately means knowledge about Krishna. But when it's refracted in the spirit, in the material world, then it comes out in knowledge of material things.
You have that explanation of the tree reflected in the water, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's like
banyan tree.
The reflection of the tree is like the material world, and you've got different ripples and waves which distort what the tree actually is and what it actually looks like. But that's a reflection of the real tree, right? Which is the spiritual world. So like all of these sort of spiritual potencies can be experienced in a limited way in the material world, right? So like we have that natural propensity to love, but when you like translate that into a material scenario, maybe you're loving a cat or something that won't love you back properly, it won't reciprocate with you fully. It's like a distorted version of if you directed that propensity at Krishna, then you'd get the reciprocation.
Yeah, and that's something nice that Prabhupada says at the beginning of Krishna book, that you're looking for somewhere to invest your loving propensity. Now, Krishna is the supreme. Because Krishna is supreme, he can supremely reciprocate with your loving propensity, and no other limited being can. If you think about it, you want to love something unconditionally and constantly. We're constantly looking for pleasure and looking for stimuli. So Krishna can give that, but you won't get that from any other limited being, because they're limited also, just like you are. So you have these two incomplete things trying to rub against each other to try and experience completeness. But you'll only, like we spread earlier, any form of incompleteness is due to incomplete knowledge of the complete whole.
It's like a small fraction plus a small fraction doesn't make a whole.
Yeah.
It's still two small fractions. Two puddles, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, just to circle it back, because the way we got down this little tangent was you were saying that Krishna being a person actually isn't limiting him.
Yeah.
Because it's allowing him to have these
personality. Because what you're saying, if God can't be a person, let's use the word God. So if God's not a person, if God can't be a person, that means you've got something that God hasn't. If you've got so it goes, so it's like that. So there's no, and it's Krishna is self-evident. That's the thing. Krishna doesn't have to prove himself to us. We have to prove ourselves to Krishna.
Nice.
And it's so enlightening when you start hearing about Krishna and really understanding the dynamics by which Krishna works. And it really is centered around he's very hungry after this loving experience.
To bring it back to the verse, it says he can only be known by devotees through his mercy. So this is kind of an important key to understanding Krishna. You can't just it even says here, through mental speculation or philosophy, you can't understand him. You need that. You need to hear from people who have seen.
Yeah, there's a special potency that the Supreme has which allows him to be understood. So that is the way it works. If you want to be known by someone, no matter how much they read about you on Facebook, etc., they don't really know you unless you actually allow, or you even have to accept their friend request. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it works that way. The way it works materially, and Krishna isn't like some material thing like a fridge or a television where you can just read the manual and understand. He's a person, and there's a certain attitude and practice which invokes Krishna to allow himself to be understood. So there's a special bhakti shakti which empowers us and our intelligence to be able to understand Krishna.
So we're still on the topic of potencies. Maybe we can just finish this paragraph that talks about his potencies.
You going there?
Yeah, his potencies are compared to the heat and light that emanate from fire, Although situated in one place, a fire can distribute its light and heat for some distance. Similarly, the absolute personality of Godhead, although fixed in his transcendental abode, can diffuse his different energies everywhere.
And that makes, you're a person, you're conscious, you have, so why can't the source of everything have those things? And being, full of inconceivable and unlimited potencies, why can't he also has an environment by which to enjoy spiritual senses?
Yeah.
That's Krishna. That's the God that's presented in Vedic literature and realized through great sages and saints in Vedic literature, that there's actually an environment up there which is also stimulus for intense, inconceivable in our platform, but intense ecstasies. That and that's where we're meant to go. And Krishna has all these potencies. We are part of the potency of the Supreme. And if we examine ourselves, you're conscious, you have likes and dislikes, and you're looking for love. You enjoy being in different environments. So just like you take a drop out of the sea and you analyze the chemical composition, you say, oh, this much salt, this much hydrogen, this much oxygen. Therefore, you can understand the same percentages, say are of hydrogen, etc., are in the ocean. So you can understand the chemical composition of the ocean by examining a drop. So similarly, if you're really introspective, you can understand the Supreme by a bit of self-reflection. So why would you deny God all of these things which are so intrinsic to our own identities? And I can't define you by taking away your personality or taking away your likes and dislikes or your favorite place. You know what I mean? You lose all definition then. So these things are the most important to you. So why have the source of everything not have these attributes? Where did you get them from? Does that make sense?
It's perfect. It's a great way to end it. Have you got any final comments, David?
No.
Great. Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, has that been much again? Sometimes I just go
No,
off in the end.
I thought that was a banger. We
Yeah,
met loads
no?
of people. We met loads of people because we've just been out on a marathon. I met some nice people. We've given out some Welsh Yogi podcast cards. If you've come from one of those cars, then let us know, because our marketing department would like to find out.
We should.
Me.
And if you want, and I think Ben made a good point. If you want to show your Upanishad,
Oh yeah, we'll
Let us
send you
know.
one. We will send you one.
you can read along in.
Instagram, Facebook, Welsh Yogi podcast. Let's get going. 2021.
2021 is the year, if you want it to be, of spiritual advancement.
It's an ascending number. 2021.
Whoa.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasavi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda Radha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Radha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasavi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare
Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Hare